Hello, everyone. Before we begin today's story, I want to share something that I believe makes the holidays even brighter. We all have our traditions, like my Christmas baking in the story, but I've found that the best new tradition is laughter. That's why I'm so excited about this new book, Advent Calendar 2025. Mom Jokes. It's a delightful 24-day countdown, filled with more than 250 clean, family-friendly jokes everyone will love. It's the perfect way to share a smile with your family. You can find the link in the pinned comment. Now, let me tell you what happened. If you were to walk into my house in mid-December, you'd probably think you'd stepped into a Christmas card. And you wouldn't be wrong. I love it. I am 70 years old, and I have always believed that Christmas is a kind of magic you make with your own hands. My kitchen, here in our house in Birmingham, is my command center. From the first of the month, it smells like cinnamon and clove with a little bit of pine from the tree in the next room. I've probably baked 3,000 ginger snaps in this very kitchen. I've wrapped mountains of gifts, simmered pots of cider, and planned every meal down to the last sprig of parsley. This is my tradition, my joy. It's what I do. My husband, Frank, walked in, stamping the cold off his boots. He's 72, and he's seen me do this for nearly 50 Christmases. He's a good man, Frank. He's pragmatic. He's not as swept up in the feeling of it all as I am. He sees the work. He sees the strings. He came up behind me and put his arms around my waist, resting his chin on my shoulder. "Smells like Christmas, Pat," he mumbled into my hair. "It is Christmas, Frank," I said, smiling as I transferred a batch of cookies to the cooling rack. He let me go and leaned against the counter. He watched me for a moment, and I knew that look. He wasn't just admiring the cookies. "Pat," he said, and his voice was real quiet. "Heard from Rita about the gifts yet?" My hands just stopped. I was holding a little star-shaped cookie cutter. I put it down on the floured counter. Just that one question. That's all it took to let all the air out of the room. The smell of cinnamon suddenly felt a little sharp. "No, Frank," I said, not looking at him. "I haven't." This would be the fourth year. The fourth year in a row. Let me explain. Frank and we have 3 children. Our oldest is Stephen. He's a good boy, or at least he was. He's a good man. But, well, we'll get to that. Then there's our daughter, Chloe. She's a firecracker. Lives in Atlanta, has a big, important job, and she always speaks her mind. Our youngest is Mark. He's the complete opposite of his sister. He lives just 20 minutes away, and he's the peacekeeper. Just like me, I suppose. He hates a fuss. He hates conflict. He'd rather swallow his own tongue than start an argument. Stephen married Rita about 8 years ago. She's different. She's from up north, has a big career in finance, and she's always very busy, always looking at her phone, always talking about a deadline or a quarterly report. I respected that. I was proud, even that my son had married such a smart, driven woman. But from the very first Christmas, it was a challenge. That first year, she'd bought the most wonderful, expensive gifts for her side of the family. Her parents, her cousins. But for my side, my sister June, my son Mark and his wife, my own daughter Chloe, nothing. "Oh, Patricia," she'd said, with a little laugh that sounded like tinkling glass. "I am so sorry. It completely slipped my mind. Work has just been a madhouse. And being me, being the peacekeeper, I just smiled and said, 'Don't you worry about it one bit. It's just wonderful to have you here.' I made an excuse for her. She's just overwhelmed." I told my sister June, who was trying to hide her disappointment. The second year, it wasn't an oops. It was an excuse. "Oh, the shipping was a complete nightmare. Patricia, I ordered everything, and you won't believe it. The delivery service lost the package." "Oh, how terrible for you. I said, but a package never arrived in January or February. The third year, last year, she didn't even bother with an excuse. She just didn't bring any. She handed out her presents to her family. And when it came time for my side, she just busied herself with her kids, my grandkids, acting like that part of the gift exchange just wasn't happening. It's not about the money. I need to be very clear about that. My sister June is 80 years old. She doesn't need another scented candle. My son Mark and his wife are doing just fine. My daughter Chloe can buy herself anything she wants. It's the message. The message, sent as clearly as if it were written on a Christmas card, is you don't matter. Your family, your traditions, your sister, none of you are worth my time. You are not my family. You are the in-laws. You are an obligation. You are invisible. It's not just June. It's my other son, Mark. She forgets his children. My own grandchildren. She forgets to even send a card to Chloe. My entire side of the family erased, wiped off the list. I looked at Frank. My kitchen, my safe, warm kitchen, suddenly felt cold. No, I said again. I haven't heard from her. Frank just sighed. It's a particular kind of sigh. It's the sound of a man who has been proven right and hates it. Why do you let her do it, Pat? He asked. It wasn't mean. It wasn't an accusation. He was genuinely asking. He's been asking for 3 years. I turned around and leaned back against the counter next to him. I felt all of my 70 years. What am I supposed to do, Frank? I asked, and my voice was tired. She's Stephen's wife. She's the mother of my grandchildren. What am I supposed to do? This is the calculation, isn't it? The horrible, silent math that mothers have to do. I've spent my whole life being the family's peacekeeper. I'm the one who smooths things over. I'm the one who hosts every holiday, so no one else has to. I'm the one who calls Mark when Chloe is mad at him, and calls Chloe when Mark is hurt by her. I'm the family's shock absorber. If I make Rita angry, if I start drama, as she would surely call it, I risk Stephen. I know my son. He's passive. He hates conflict even more than Mark does. He will always take the path of least resistance. And that path is following Rita's lead. If I challenge her, she will see it as an attack. And she will turn my son against me. She will make it impossible to see my grandchildren. She'll say I'm toxic or controlling. I've seen it happen to my friends. One wrong word, and suddenly the grandkids are too busy to come over. Suddenly, your son stops calling as much. So I make the excuses. I am the one who, for the past 2 years, has run out on Christmas Eve morning in a panic to buy emergency gifts. I run into a department store, grab whatever's left, and I put a tag on it. To June, love Stephen and Rita. I am the one who lies to my own sister. I am the one who tells Mark's kids, oh, I'm sure their gift is in the mail. I lie. I lie for her. I lie to protect, what, a fake peace? My own son's inability to stand up for his own family? I'm so tired of it. I'm 70 years old. I'm tired of lying for a 35-year-old woman. I'm tired of being the only one who cares about holding this family together. I'm tired of being invisible in my own home. I tried to talk to Stephen about it last January. Gently. Oh, so gently. Son, I said over the phone, your Aunt June was a little disappointed. I think Rita just forgot. And my son, my own boy, he ran interference for her. Mom, Rita's job is so demanding. You have no idea the stress she's under. You know she doesn't mean it. Don't make a big deal out of it. He was making excuses for her, to me, and that's when I knew. He wasn't just passive. He was on her side. My daughter Chloe, of course, has a different opinion. Mom, you're a doormat, she told me last week. She's been disrespecting you and our entire family for years. Why are you surprised? You taught her she could. It hurts when your own daughter sees you as weak. But what does she know? She's not here trying to hold the pieces together. It's easy to throw bombs from Atlanta. Frank came over and put his hand on my shoulder. His hand is warm and a little rough from his workshop. You don't have to do it this year, Pat, he said. I looked down at the cookie cutter in my hand. What if she does it again, Frank? I whispered. I was so afraid of the answer. She is going to do it again, he said, and his voice was firm. She's going to do it again, and you're going to let her. Or you're not. He gave my shoulder a squeeze and walked out of the kitchen, leaving me alone with the half-decorated cookies and the cold, hard truth. He was right. Frank warned me. She's going to do it again, Pat. I just didn't know. I didn't know that this would be the year it all came crashing down. That conversation with Frank in the kitchen, it hung over me for the next 2 days. It was like a cloud had settled in our house, even with all the Christmas lights on. I tried to shake it. I told myself, maybe this year will be different. Maybe I'm getting all worked up over nothing. I was in the living room, trying to untangle a string of lights that I knew I had packed away perfectly last January. Frank was in his workshop. The house was quiet, too quiet. That's when my phone started ringing on the side table. I glanced at the screen. Chloe. My heart didn't leap. It just ceased. It was a cold, hard knot right under my ribs. I knew, just as I knew my own name, that this was it. This was the call. I picked it up. Hello, sweetheart. Don't hello, sweetheart me, Mom. She was talking fast. She always talks fast when she's mad. I just got off the phone with Rita. I sat down hard on the sofa. I didn't even bother to put the tangled lights down. Oh. Yes, oh. I called her Mom. I did what you said you wanted us to do. I called her to coordinate, to be nice. I asked her, hey Rita, just checking in to see what you're getting for Aunt June, so we don't buy the same thing. You know, the olive branch. I closed my eyes. And what did she say, Chloe? I heard her take a deep breath on the other end of the line, like she was trying to keep herself from screaming. She said, oh, Chloe, thank God you called. I am drowning in work. I haven't had a second to even think about it. Listen, would you be a complete lifesaver? I felt the blood drain from my face. I knew what was coming. Would you be a lifesaver and just pick up something for her? And for Mark's kids? You're so much better at that stuff than I am. Just put my and Stephen's name on it. You can just Venmo me for it or something. The string of lights fell from my lap onto the floor. I was silent. Did you hear me, Mom? Chloe's voice was sharp. She didn't forget, Mom. She planned to forget. She was waiting for one of us to call, so she could dump her responsibility on us, on me. I couldn't find my voice. This was new. This was a whole new level. Forgetting was passive. This was active. This was manipulation. She was asking my daughter to lie for her, to do her work, and then lie to the family about it. And then she said, oh, and don't tell your mom. You know how she worries about little things. I felt the air leave my lungs. She said what? She told me not to tell you that you worry about little things. Little things. Mom, is Aunt June a little thing? Are Mark's children little things? Is our entire family a little thing to her? What did you say? I whispered. I told her, absolutely not. Rita, that's a new low, even for you. And then she did that fake little tinkle laugh and said, oh, Chloe, you always take things so seriously. I was just asking for a favor. And I hung up. Chloe was breathing hard. I could hear her pacing in her condo in Atlanta. Mom, are you there? Mom, you have to do something. This isn't just rude anymore. This is calculated. She is actively disrespecting you. She thinks you're a fool. She's counting on you being the peacekeeper so she can walk all over everyone. She's lazy, and she's mean, and she's making you do her dirty work by buying those last-minute gifts every year. She knows you do it, Mom. She's counting on it. And now she's trying to rope me into her little game. I was cold. I was just so cold. My daughter was right. My husband was right. I'd been telling myself for 4 years that she was busy or overwhelmed or just different. No, she just didn't care. And she thought I was too weak or too stupid or too scared to do anything about it. Chloe, I started, but I didn't know what to say. Don't, Mom, she said, and her voice softened just a little. Don't make an excuse for her. Not this time. Please. For your own sake. For our sake. You have to call Stephen. You have to tell him what his wife just did. This is his mess to clean up. I was twisting the phone cord in my hand. He'll just defend her. Sweetheart. You know he will. Make him, Chloe said, and her voice was steel. Make him say the words. Make him defend this. Make him tell you that it's okay for his wife to ask his sister to lie to his mother. Make him say it out loud, and then you'll know. You'll finally know where you stand. She was right. She was absolutely right. I have to go, Mom. I'm so angry I could spit. I love you. Don't be a doormat. The line clicked. I sat there in the living room, in the silence. The Christmas lights were in a knotted heap at my feet. A perfect, hopeless tangle. It wasn't just anger I was feeling. It was a new kind of anger. It wasn't hot like Chloe's. It was a cold, hard, heavy thing. It settled in my stomach like a stone. She had tried to use my daughter against me. She had called my sister, my grandchildren, my feelings, little things. I stood up. I walked into the kitchen, found my son Stephen's number, and I pressed call. I don't know what I was hoping for. Maybe that this would be the thing that finally woke him up, that he would hear what his wife did and be just as horrified as I was, that he would say, "My God, Mom, I am so sorry. I'll handle this." That's what I hoped for. That's the hope that keeps a mother going, isn't it? That your child will, in the end, do the right thing. He picked up on the third ring. "Hey, Mom, what's up? Everything okay for Christmas?" He sounded so normal, so cheerful. I just got off the phone with Chloe. "Stephen," I said. I kept my voice perfectly level. No emotion, just the facts. The cheer in his voice died. "Oh, yeah, Rita mentioned Chloe called. Sounded like she was pretty wound up." "She was," I said. "She told me what Rita asked her to do." There was a pause. A long, telling pause. "Mom," he started, and his voice had that weary tone. The one I knew so well. The one that meant he was already on the defense. "She asked your sister to buy gifts for your Aunt June and your brother's children and to put your and her name on them. She asked your sister to lie to me. Stephen." "Mom, you're making a huge deal out of this," he said with an exasperated sigh. She was just stressed, and she was trying to delegate. You know her job. They're closing out the quarter. She's drowning. Chloe's so good at that stuff. She thought she could use Chloe to cover her tracks. I said, my voice still quiet. "No. God, Mom, why do you have to twist everything? You and Chloe, you're always ganging up on her. You're not ganging up. You're turning it into this big drama. It was just a simple request. Chloe could have just said no politely. She didn't have to fly off the handle and run to you like a tattletale." I had to sit down. He called his sister a tattletale. "Stephen," she told Chloe not to tell me. She said I worry about little things. I was giving him one last chance. I was handing him the words that should have made his blood boil. Stephen just sighed again. Well, you are overreacting, Mom. It is a little thing in the grand scheme of things. It's just gifts. It's not the end of the world. Rita is trying her best. Why can't you just let it go? Why does it have to be this fight every single year? And that's when it happened. It wasn't a snap. It was more like a crack, a long, slow crack like you see in an old porcelain cup just before it breaks in two. He told me not to worry. He told me his sister was overreacting. He told me my feelings, my family, my traditions were little things. It was one thing to be forgotten by a daughter-in-law I barely knew. It was one thing to be dismissed by a woman who saw me as an obligation. It was another thing entirely to be dismissed by my own son, my firstborn, the boy I'd raised. He was choosing this. He was choosing her excuses over his own family. He was telling me, in no uncertain terms, that I did not matter. Stephen, I said, my voice was so cold, it barely sounded like my own. I see. Good. So you'll just let it go? Tell Chloe to calm down. I have to go, Stephen. I'm very busy. Oh, okay. Well, we'll see you on Christmas Eve, right? Love you. He hung up. I stood in my kitchen, the phone in my hand. I was shaking. Not from sadness. Not from anger. It was something else. It was resolve. Frank had been wrong. This wasn't the year it all came crashing down. This was the year I was going to be the one to light the match. He told me not to worry. He told me his sister was overreacting. It was one thing to be forgotten. It was another to be dismissed by my own son. That was the moment something inside me snapped. After that call with Stephen, I lived in a strange, cold quiet for 2 days. Frank knew. He'd see me staring out the window, and he'd just come over and put a hand on my shoulder. He didn't say, "I told you so." He didn't have to. I went through the motions. I baked the pies. I set the table with my best china. I told Mark and his family to come at 6. I told Stephen and Rita the same. I told my sister June I'd pick her up at 5:30. I didn't go out for the emergency gifts. I didn't buy a single thing to put under the tree with Stephen and Rita's names on it. This year, the lie would stop, and the truth, whatever it was, would have to be enough. Christmas Eve dinner. My table was beautiful. The turkey was perfect. My son Mark and his wife were there, trying to make cheerful small talk. But they could feel it. You could cut the tension with a butter knife. Mark kept looking at the door. He hates any kind of unpleasantness. My sister June was here, looking lovely in her red sweater, but I could see the question in her eyes. Frank was quiet, seated at the head of the table, just watching me. Stephen and Rita were, of course, late. 45 minutes late. They blew in with the cold air, my grandkids in tow, with a flurry of, "Oh, the traffic was a nightmare," and sorry, just lost track of time. Rita, however, didn't look sorry at all. She was wearing a new dress that probably cost more than my mortgage payment, and she was glued to her phone. She'd barely made eye contact, just gave a little wave. "Hi, everyone. Merry Christmas," she said, without even looking up from her screen. She sat down at the table, and while Stephen and Mark tried to get the grandkids settled, Rita was tapping away. Tap, tap, tap. Like she was at a board meeting, not a family dinner. I said nothing. We started passing the food. The gift exchange, which we usually do before dinner, hadn't happened. There was no pile of gifts from Stephen and Rita. Just nothing. The space under the tree looked empty. My sister June, bless her heart, is from a generation where you fill an awkward silence. She looked at Rita's wrist. "My goodness, Rita," she said, her voice kind. "What a beautiful bracelet. That's just stunning." Rita looked up from her phone as if she was annoyed at being interrupted. She looked at her wrist, where a delicate gold and diamond bracelet sat. She smiled. It was a small, smug smile. "Oh, this old thing," she said, with that high, tinkling laugh. "Stephen's just so good at remembering me. He knows how to spoil his wife. I'm just so busy all the time. I'd forget my own head if it wasn't screwed on." And there it was. She said it. She said it right there in front of my sister, who she had forgotten. In front of my other son and his children, who she had forgotten. She was bragging about being remembered while knowing she had erased everyone else. I looked at June. Her smile wavered, and she looked down at her plate. I looked at Mark. He was pretending to be very interested in his sweet potatoes. I thought about all the things I could do. I could let it go. Again. I could swallow this, just like I had swallowed the lost package and the madhouse at work, and I just forgot. I could do it for the grandkids. I could keep the peace. I could wait until tomorrow and call Stephen and have the same useless circular conversation we always had. I could pull Rita aside after the pie into the kitchen and whisper, "Rita, that was very hurtful to June." And she would give me that same blank, polite stare and say, "Oh, Patricia, you're so sensitive. I didn't mean anything by it." She would count on my good manners. She would count on my desire to avoid a scene. I looked at June again. I looked at Frank. He was looking right at me. He wasn't telling me what to do. He was just waiting. She counted on my silence. But she had miscalculated. She didn't realize that a peacekeeper, pushed too far, knows exactly where to strike to end the war. I put my fork down. It made a small, clear click on the china plate. The table went silent. "Rita," I said. My voice wasn't loud. It wasn't shaking. It was just clear, like ice. "That's a lovely bracelet." She looked at me, surprised. "Oh, well, thank you, Patry. It's a shame you can't seem to remember anyone but yourself." You could have heard a pin drop. Rita just stared at me. Her mouth opened a little. What?" she stammered. She looked to Stephen for help, but he was frozen. "What did you just say to me?" she asked. I kept my hands folded on the table. I looked her right in the eye. I said, I repeated, "It's a shame you can't remember anyone but yourself. This is the 4th year, Rita, that you have forgotten to bring a single gift for my sister, for my other son, for my grandchildren. You've sat at my table, eaten my food, and deliberately disrespected my entire side of this family. We are done making excuses for you." It was all out. It was all said. It had taken maybe 30 seconds, but it felt like I had finally set down a 100-pound weight I'd been carrying. Now, the reaction. My oldest grandson, David, he's 9. His eyes got huge. He looked from me to his mother, and his little lip started to tremble. He didn't know what was happening, just that his grandma, who was always nice, was suddenly not nice at all. My son Mark, oh, poor Mark, he just sank in his chair. He physically recoiled. He put his head in his hands and just shook it like I had betrayed him. He's my peacekeeper, and I had just detonated a bomb in the middle of his Christmas. Stephen was pale. He just looked at me, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. He was paralyzed. And Rita, her face was a masterpiece. First, it was pure white shock. The "how dare you" kind. The "you're just the in-law" kind. Then, as my words landed, as she realized I had said it out loud, in front of everyone, the color flooded back into her face. It was a dark, angry, splotchy red. She wasn't just embarrassed. She was furious that her little game had been exposed. She stood up. Her chair scraped loudly on the wood floor. "How dare you?" she whispered. It was a hiss. She grabbed Stephen's arm, hard. "We're leaving," she said. "Rita, wait," Stephen started. "We are leaving." Now, she grabbed her purse, grabbed her kids by the arm, my poor, confused grandkids, and just hauled them toward the door. She didn't get their coats. Mom, Stephen said, looking at me. His face was just torn. Go with your wife, Stephen, I said, my voice still quiet. He did. He got up, grabbed his coat, and followed her out. The front door slammed shut. It was so loud in the quiet house. And there we were, my sister June, my son Mark and his family, my husband, and me, sitting at a table full of perfect food, with 3 empty chairs. The house was finally silent, and the roast was getting cold. Speaking of family, don't forget our Advent calendar 2025. Mom Jokes book. It's 24 days of family fun. The link is in the pinned comment. For a full minute, nobody moved. The only sound in the room was the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall. The echo of the slammed door just hung in the air, heavy as smoke. My son Mark's youngest, my granddaughter, pipes up in her little 6-year-old voice. Mommy, why did Uncle Stephen and Aunt Rita leave? Are they sick? Mark's wife shushed her gently, her face pale. And then my sister June, who had been looking down at her lap, lifted her chin. She reached across the table and put her hand, all paper-thin skin and old veins, on top of mine. She gave it a little squeeze. Well, she said, and her voice was as clear as a bell. It's about time. I felt a rush of something. Gratitude. Relief. It was like a single, warm light in a very cold room. But it didn't last. Mom. I looked at my other son, Mark. He wasn't yelling, but his voice was tight and angry, and he was staring at me with a look of pure disbelief. Mom, how could you? He whispered, gesturing to his own children, who were looking at him with wide, worried eyes. At the dinner table, on Christmas Eve, in front of the kids. His wife put a hand on his arm. Mark, not now. No, I want to know, he said, shaking his head. What was that? You couldn't have. I don't know, send an email? You had to do it here? You had to blow up the whole family, in front of everyone. There it was. The split. I could feel it, like a crack forming right down the middle of my dining room table. On one side, my sister, who had been forgotten. On the other, my son, who just wanted peace. I looked at Frank. He was just sitting at the head of the table, his fork still on his plate. He hadn't moved. He just looked at me, his eyes full of a strange, sad understanding. He just sighed, and it was the heaviest sound in the world. You did it, Pat, he said. Not good for you. Not how could you? Just, you did it. The rest of the dinner was a disaster. It was over. Mark's wife started gathering up their kids, saying it was getting late. Mark wouldn't look at me. He just grabbed their coats, his face a tight mask of anger and disappointment. They were out the door in less than 10 minutes. So then it was just the 3 of us. Me, Frank, and June, sitting at a table full of ruined food and 3 empty, accusing chairs. I took June home. She was quiet in the car. As I walked her to her door, she just turned and hugged me. You're a good woman, Patricia, she said. Don't let them tell you any different. When I got home, Frank was in the kitchen, wrapping up the turkey in tinfoil. We didn't talk about it. What was there to say? We just cleaned up the wreckage of our Christmas Eve in complete silence. I didn't sleep that night. I just lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I had done the right thing or if I had just taken a match to my own family. Christmas morning. The phone started ringing at 9 o'clock. It was Stephen. I knew it would be. I let Frank pick it up, but I could hear Stephen's voice, high and angry, even from across the room. Frank just listened, said, MHM, okay, I'll tell her, and then hung up. He's going to call back in an hour, Frank said, pouring himself a cup of coffee. He wants you. He said he's too angry to talk to you right now. He called back at 10, I picked up the phone in the kitchen. Mom. His voice was cold. Stephen, I cannot believe you, he started, and all the anger he hadn't shown at the table came pouring out. I cannot believe you would do that to my wife. She is devastated. She cried all the way home. She's in our room, and she won't come out. The kids are completely confused. You ruined their Christmas. You ruined it. Stephen, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. Your wife has disrespected this family for 4 why. Disrespected, he shouted. You call that disrespect? She's busy. She's got a high-pressure job. She's not a 1950s housewife. She can't spend all day baking cookies and worrying about gifts for every single person. And you humiliate her. In public, in front of everyone. What kind of person does that, Mom? I was just stunned. He wasn't just defending her. He was attacking me. She told me you looked smug, he said, his voice dripping with disgust. That you enjoyed it. That you've always hated her. I guess now I know. Congratulations, Mom. You won. And he slammed the phone down. I was shaking. I sat down at the kitchen table. Frank just put a hand on my shoulder. The phone rang again, almost immediately. I flinched. Frank picked it up. Hello. Oh, hello, Chloe. Merry Christmas. Yes, she's right here. He handed me the phone. Mom. It was Chloe. Hello, sweetheart. I just talked to Mark. She said, no preamble. He told me everything. And I just have one thing to say. I braced myself. I am so proud of you. I just burst into tears. I couldn't help it. It was such a relief. I'm serious, Mom, she said, and her voice was fierce. It's about time. It's what I've been telling you for years. She deserved it. You did it perfectly. She's a bully, and the only way to handle a bully is to stand up to them. Do not, under any circumstances, do you hear me, Mom? Do not you dare apologize. I won't, I whispered, wiping my eyes. Good. Now, Mark is acting like a child. And Stephen made his choice years ago. He just showed you who he is. Believe him. We talked for a little while, and I felt stronger. I felt validated. And then, just as I was starting to feel like I could breathe again, the phone rang a third time. It was Mark. He wasn't angry this time. He was desperate. Mom, he said, and he sounded exhausted. Mom, this is a mess. I know, Mark, I said. No, you don't. This isn't just a little fight. It's bad. I just tried to call Stephen to, wish the kids a Merry Christmas. He told me that as long as I was on your side, I wasn't welcome. He hung up on me. My heart sank. And then, he continued, Chloe called, and she just lit into me. Mom, she said I was a spineless coward for being mad at you, and that I should be supporting you instead of worrying about peace. Now Chloe's fighting with Stephen, Stephen's fighting with me. You're fighting with Stephen. This is a disaster. He took a deep breath. And then he said it. The thing his father had been asking me for years. The thing I had been doing for years. Mom, please, he begged. Just be the mom. Please. Just call Rita. Tell her you were stressed. Tell her you didn't mean it like that. Just fix it. Say you're sorry. Just to smooth things over. For the family. Please. He was asking me to be the peacekeeper again. He was asking me to go back, to pick up all the broken pieces and try to glue them back together, even if it meant lying, even if it meant apologizing for being told the truth. I hung up the phone. I looked at Frank. I was 70 years old. It was Christmas Day, and my family was at war. I was being pulled in 3 different directions. Stephen, who thought I was a monster. Chloe, who thought I was a hero. And Mark, who just wanted his mommy to kiss the boo-boo and make it all better. And all I could really truly think was, what have I done? The day after Christmas was always quiet, but this was a new kind of silence. It wasn't the peaceful, satisfied quiet of a holiday well spent. It was a heavy, cold, empty silence. I was sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee that had gone cold. The house was spotless. Frank and I had cleaned up the entire mess from the night before, put away the good china, wrapped the leftovers, vacuumed the pine needles. It was as if Christmas Eve had never happened. But it had. I just sat there, replaying the phone calls in my head. Stephen's rage, Chloe's pride, Mark's desperate plea to just fix it. What have I done? I had asked myself last night, and this morning, in the cold light of day, I still didn't know. Had I finally stood up for myself, or had I just been cruel? Had I liberated my family, or had I just torn it apart? Frank walked in, setting his own mug down across from me. He didn't say good morning. He just sat and looked at me, his face kind, but so tired. He reached across the table and put his hand over mine. Whatever you decide to do next, Pat, I'm with you, he said, his voice rough. You know that. But we can't go on like this. Like what? I whispered. Like this, he said, gesturing to the silent house. This war, this walking on eggshells for half the year, and then this explosion, this, Stephen's anger, Mark's fear, Chloe's satisfaction. It's not a family, Pat. It's a battlefield. And you've been the one running out in the middle, trying to patch everyone up, and getting hit by all sides. He was right. I was 70 years old, and I'd spent my entire adult life as the family's peacekeeper. That's what I called myself. But Frank's words made me see it differently. I hadn't been keeping peace. I had been forcing it. I'd been trying to control everything. I'd been trying to control Rita's behavior by making excuses for it. I'd been trying to control my sister's disappointment by lying to her. I'd been trying to control Mark's anxiety by pretending everything was fine. I'd been trying to control Stephen's marriage by just being silent. And for what? It hadn't worked. All that peacekeeping had just led to the biggest explosion we'd ever had. My son Mark's voice was ringing in my ears. Just fix it, Mom. Please. I thought about it. I really did. I could pick up the phone right now. I could call Rita. I could say, I am so sorry. I was stressed. The turkey was burning. I don't know what came over me. I could lie. I could fix it. I could probably get Stephen to talk to Mark again. I could probably get Rita to a place of smug, silent forgiveness. I could glue the pieces back together. We could go back to the way things were. And the thought of going back to that, made me feel sick to my stomach. I couldn't. I finally understood. I couldn't control Rita. I couldn't control Stephen's choices. I couldn't even control Mark's need for a perfect, conflict-free world. The only person in this entire, messy, broken family that I could control was me. I could control what I would accept. I could control what happened in my house. I could control what I was willing to lie about. And I was done lying. I can't fix it, Frank, I said, and my voice was stronger than I expected. He just looked at me. I'm not asking you to, he said. I'm just asking what's next. I don't know, I said, but I think I need to set the new rules. I stood up. I walked over to the counter where my laptop was. I opened it. I started a new email. I put all three of their names in the to field. Stephen, Chloe, Mark. My hands were shaking. This was it. This was the point of no return. I was taking myself out of the peacekeeper role. I was retiring, and I was terrified. What if Stephen never spoke to me again? What if Mark saw this as me just making it worse? I was siding with Chloe. That's what they'd say. But I wasn't. I wasn't siding with anyone. I was just finally standing still. I took a deep breath, and I started to type. To my dear children, I wrote, I love you all, more than you will ever know. For my entire life, this family has been my everything, my joy, my purpose. I've spent all my years trying to make sure everyone was happy, trying to hold us all together. But I've realized that in all my peacekeeping, I've done a disservice to us all. I've taught you that my feelings don't matter. I've taught you that our home is a place where you can disrespect people, as long as you apologize for it later, or just ignore it. I've taught you that I will be the one to fix it. I can't do that anymore. I am not mad. I am not at war with anyone, but I am done. I am done being the person who absorbs all the family's pain. I am done making excuses for behavior that is inexcusable. And I am done sacrificing my own peace and my own family's dignity just to avoid a fight. So this is the new rule. It's the only one. From now on, our home will be a place of mutual respect. That's it. That is my only rule. I will not tolerate disrespect. Not to me, not to Frank, not to my sister, not to any of you. I am not picking sides. I am not exiling anyone. I am just setting a boundary. My door is always open. I love you all, and I hope you will all join us in this new chapter. Love, Mom. I read it over. Once. Twice. It was the most honest thing I had ever written. I looked at Frank. He hadn't read it. He didn't need to. He just nodded at me, a slow, steady nod. I put my finger on the mouse. I clicked send. And then I waited. The house was completely silent, but in my head, it was the loudest sound I had ever heard. Hitting send on that email was like dropping a rock in a well. You do it, and then you just wait, listening for a splash that you're not even sure will ever come. The first reply, of course, came about 30 seconds later. My phone buzzed on the counter. It was Chloe. Just 3 words. Atta girl, Mom. And from Stephen? From Mark? Nothing. Just silence. That first day, I must have checked my phone a dozen times. Nothing. The second day, nothing. The rest of that week, the house was quieter than it had ever been. The phone, which had been ringing off the hook with anger and panic, just stopped. January rolled in. It was cold and gray outside, and it felt that way inside, too. The silence from Stephen and Mark wasn't like the silence I'd asked for. It was a cold, punishing silence. It was the sound of them siding with their own anger, or, in Mark's case, his own fear. And I have to be honest, it hurt. It hurt terribly. This was the consequence. This was the what now. My son, Stephen, my firstborn, was not speaking to me, and by extension, I was cut off from his children. My grandchildren, I'd walk past their photos on the mantle, and I'd feel this ache, this hollow space in my chest. Had I done this? Had I, in standing up for myself, just broken everything? Was I a bad mother? My son Mark, he wasn't silent, not completely, but he was distant. He'd call, but the calls were short. Stiff. Hey, Mom. Just checking in. Everyone okay? Yep, we're fine. Okay, well, talk to you later. He wouldn't ask about Stephen. He wouldn't talk about Christmas. He was walking on a tightrope, and I was on the other side. He was still my peacekeeper son, and he was terrified of making a wrong move. So he just stayed in the middle, which felt, to me, like he was nowhere at all. This was the new normal, and it was lonely. But, and this is the part one feel almost guilty admitting. Underneath the loss, underneath the ache, there was something else. It was relief. I'd wake up in the morning, and for a split second, I'd feel that old, familiar knot of dread in my stomach, and then I'd realize it wasn't there. There was no phone call to dread. There was no drama to manage. There was no walking on eggshells, wondering when the next Rita incident would be. There was no need to call my sister June and pre-manage her expectations. I wasn't the peacekeeper anymore. I had retired. I was just Patricia. I hadn't been just Patricia in 50 years. I'd been mom. I'd been grandma. I'd been the hostess. I'd been the family's emotional manager. And now I was unemployed. One Tuesday, about 3 weeks into this heavy silence, Frank found me staring out the kitchen window. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "Nothing," I said, which was a lie. I was thinking about my grandson's upcoming birthday. "Good," he said, taking the coffee pot from my hand. "Go put your coat on." "What? Why?" "It's 2 o'clock. There's a matinee of that new movie, the one with the old actor you like. Let's go. Right now." "But, Frank, it's the middle of the day." I stopped. What did I have to do? The laundry was done. The house was clean. There was no dinner to plan for 20 people. There was no one to call. "Okay," I said, and I went and got my coat. We sat in a mostly empty theater, sharing a bag of popcorn, and we held hands. And we didn't rush home. Afterward, we went to a new restaurant, one of those little fancy places, and had a glass of wine and an appetizer. When we got home, Frank unlocked the door and smiled at me. "You know," he said, "I feel like I have my wife back. Not mom, not grandma, just Pat." It was a start. A few days later, he came in holding a travel brochure. "Remember that trip to New England we talked about? Oh, about 30 years ago," he said. "The one to see the fall colors? The one we never took because it was always, Stephen's football season or Chloe's recital or Mark's finals." I remember I said, "Well, I booked it," he said, holding up 2 tickets for a train tour in October. I just stared at him. You booked it?" "Yep, we're going." And that's when I realized my life was not just about what was lost. It was also about what was found. My relationship with Chloe changed, too. We'd always been close, but now we really talked. She'd call, and we wouldn't spend a single minute talking about Stephen or Rita or the drama. We talked about her work, about a book she was reading, about Frank and my date to the movies. We were just 2 women, friends. And I took my sister June to lunch. Just us. We sat at a little tea room, and she ordered the cucumber sandwiches. "I'm sorry, June," I said. "For all those years, I let that happen." She patted my hand. "Patricia, I've lived 80 years. I've seen a lot worse than a rude daughter-in-law. I'm just proud of you. Now, let's talk about something else. Did you see what they're doing to that garden down on Main Street?" We were moving on. I was letting go. I was letting go of this idea, this heavy, glossy magazine cover idea of a perfect family. The one where everyone gets along, and everyone is at the dinner table, and everyone is smiling. My family wasn't perfect. It was broken. It was messy, and it was real. And I was finding peace right in the middle of it. I was 70 years old. I was a mother whose son wasn't speaking to her. I was a woman who had just booked a trip she'd waited 30 years for. I was a wife who was holding her husband's hand in a movie theater in the middle of a Tuesday. I was learning to be 70, and I was discovering that my life didn't have to revolve around one perfect, stressful, and impossible-to-please dinner table. Speaking of family, don't forget our Advent Calendar 2025, Mom Jokes book. It's 24 days of family fun. The link is in the pinned comment. The seasons turned as they always do. Spring came, and Frank and I worked in the garden. Summer was quiet and warm. We'd sit on the porch in the evenings just talking. And Stephen, the silence from him was complete. I didn't get a card for my birthday. I didn't get a call for Mother's Day. Nothing. It was a silence, so total, it was its own kind of message. It was a slammed door, a locked gate, and I had to learn to live with that. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. Mark. Well, Mark was different. After a few months of those stiff, short phone calls, his wife, Sarah, called me. "Patricia," she said, and she sounded nervous. "Mark, he's stuck. He hates that Stephen is being like this, and he hates that Chloe is mad at him for being in the middle. He doesn't know what to do. He doesn't have to do anything." I told her, and I meant it. He just has to be my son. Can we bring the kids over on Sunday?" she asked, her voice small. "Not for a big thing. Just to see you." And so they came, and it was normal. We didn't talk about the incident. We just had lemonade. I played with my grandchildren. I saw my son Mark watching me, and he had a look on his face, a sad but soft look. He was starting to understand. He was seeing that my boundary wasn't a wall to keep him out. It was just a line in the sand. As the months went on, those Sunday visits became regular. The ice melted. Mark was my son again. He'd hug me when he came in the door, a real hug. "Hey, Mom," he'd say. He had come around. He had chosen. In October, Frank and I went on our trip. We took the train through New England. We saw mountains painted in red and gold. We ate lobster in Maine. I sent a postcard to Chloe, one to June, and one to Mark. I even bought one for Stephen. I wrote, "Thinking of you. Love, Mom." I put it in my suitcase. I still don't know if I'll ever mail it. When we got back, it was November, and the great looming thing was there, Christmas. Frank and I were in the kitchen. "It's starting again," he said, but this time he wasn't talking about Rita. He was just stating a fact. The holidays were coming. "No, they're not," I said, and I smiled. "They're not. Not like that. Not this year. This year, there was no dread. There was no anxiety. There was no plan." I sent one simple email just to Mark and Chloe. "Hello, sweethearts. Just letting you know, your father and I are doing something different for Christmas this year. We're not hosting the big, stressful dinner. We're going to have a quiet, simple day. You and your families are so welcome to join us. The door is open. We'll eat around too. Love, Mom." I didn't send one to Stephen. I couldn't. He had made his choice. And so Christmas came. I woke up and I felt peaceful. I made coffee. Frank and I sat by the tree. It was a smaller tree this year, just as beautiful. Around 1 o'clock, the doorbell rang. It was Mark, Sarah, and the kids. Their arms were full of gifts. "Merry Christmas, Mom." "Merry Christmas, Dad." They were smiling. The house felt full. Aunt June came over. She looked wonderful. She brought a little poinsettia. At 2:00, my laptop, which we'd set on the sideboard, pinged. It was Chloe on a video call from Atlanta. "Merry Christmas, everyone," she shouted, waving. "Mom, you look happy." And I was. We sat down. The table was smaller. The food was simpler. I'd just made a ham. But, oh, the feeling. There was no tension. There was no walking on eggshells. There was no part of my brain scanning the room, managing emotions, worrying about who was sitting where. We just talked. We laughed. Mark told a funny story about work. The kids showed June their new toys. We all waved at Chloe and made faces at the screen. It was joyful. It wasn't the perfect Christmas I had always tried to force. It wasn't the big, glossy magazine cover family. It was smaller. It was quieter. It was real. It was a Christmas of mutual respect. It was the Christmas I had earned. I looked at Frank, and he was already looking at me. He raised his glass of cider. He didn't say a word. He didn't have to. We were clearing the dishes. Frank was scraping plates, Mark was rinsing, and I was loading the dishwasher. Just a family cleaning up after a happy meal. I was feeling so full, not just of ham and pie, but of this deep, quiet, sturdy peace. It was the best Christmas I'd had in years. I had finally found it, my peace, my new tradition. And then, as I was closing the dishwasher, my phone, which was on the counter, buzzed. I glanced at it. It was a new email. I didn't recognize the sender at first, and then my blood ran cold. The email was from Rita. My hand was still wet from the dishwasher. Mark was telling Frank a joke. I just stared at the screen, at her name. It felt like a ghost had walked into the room. A cold, unwelcome draft in my warm, happy kitchen. "Mom," Mark said, "You okay?" I couldn't speak. I just picked up the phone. My thumb was shaking. I unlocked it and opened the email. It was long. Not a line or two. It was a letter. "Dear Patricia," it started. Not Mom. Not Pat. "Patricia, I know I am the last person you want to hear from, especially on Christmas. I've been sitting here all day thinking. Stephen and we didn't do anything. We just sat here. The kids opened their gifts from us, and it just felt so empty." I took a breath. I could feel Frank and Mark watching me. "I know you think I'm a terrible person," the email went on. "I know I've made a lot of mistakes. I wanted to try and explain. Not to make excuses, but just to explain." Oh, here it comes, I thought. The excuses. I have always been, I don't know, intimidated by your family. By you. You're so perfect. You're the perfect mother. The perfect cook. You have this perfect, warm house. Everything is always right. And I'm not. I'm messy. I'm disorganized. I'm always late. I'm always underwater with work. And I felt like I could just never compete with that. I could never be that. I had to read that line again. Me, perfect? I looked around my kitchen at the mismatched mugs, at the crack in the linoleum I've been meaning to fix. Perfect? I felt like I was always failing. She wrote. And every Christmas it was just another test. Another big, perfect test that I was going to fail. And so, I stopped trying. It was easier to just be busy than to try and fail. It was easier to pretend it didn't matter. It was cowardly. I know that. When you said what you said at the dinner table, I was so angry. I was so embarrassed. I thought you were so cruel. I've spent the last year telling Stephen how cruel you were, how you'd always hated me. But the thing is, you weren't wrong. I had to sit down. My knees went weak. I backed up and sat down at the kitchen table. "What is it, Pat?" Frank asked, his voice low. I just held up a hand. I had to keep reading. "You weren't wrong," she wrote again. "I was disrespectful. I was thoughtless. And I was a coward. I let Stephen's family, my family, feel invisible because I was insecure. There's no excuse for it. It was awful. And I am so, so sorry." There it was. The words. I am sorry. Words I never, ever thought I would read from her. My eyes were blurring. I had to blink. "I don't know if we can fix this. I've hurt you. I've hurt Stephen. He's been miserable this past year. He won't say it, but he's just a shell. He misses his brother. He misses you. He misses this. All of it. He doesn't talk to me about it, but I know I miss what we had. Or I miss what we could have had. I miss seeing the kids run to you. I don't know. I've been so stupid. I was so focused on me, and I ruined it. I'm, I'm trying to be a different person. I'm, I'm in therapy. I'm trying to figure out me. I don't know what I'm asking. I, I guess I am asking. Can we please try again? I know I have no right to ask, but can we maybe come over? Not now, but soon, just to talk? I'll understand if you say no, or if you don't answer at all. Merry Christmas, Rita. I put the phone down on the table. The screen went dark. Mark was standing there, his mouth open. Mom, what was that? I couldn't answer. I just pushed the phone across the table to Frank. He picked it up. He read the whole thing. His face didn't change. He just read it slowly, carefully. Mark was reading it over his shoulder. Wow, Mark whispered. She's in therapy? Frank finished. He locked the phone and set it back down in front of me. He looked at me. His eyes were sad. Well, he said, and his voice was so quiet. That's something. What do I do? I whispered. My perfect, peaceful Christmas was gone. My heart was hammering. My new quiet life was over. She's apologizing, Mom, Mark said. He sounded hopeful. That's huge, right? She's apologizing. She wants to try. I looked at him, my peacekeeper son. He saw a bridge. He saw a way to fix it. But I saw something else. I saw the door cracking open again. I saw the chaos. I saw the effort, the walking on eggshells, the trying, how do we know if this is real? She's asking to come over, I said, my voice flat. That's good. Mark said, right, that's a first step. I looked at Frank. He hadn't said anything. He was just watching me. He saw the turmoil in my face. He knew what I was feeling. This wasn't peace. This was an invasion. He reached across the table, just like he'd done that day. A year ago, but instead of putting his hand over mine, he just tapped the phone. Be careful, Pat, he said. That's all. Just be careful. Be careful of what? Be careful of hoping? Be careful of believing her? Be careful of letting her in just to get hurt again. Be careful of letting my desire to see my son, to see my grandchildren, be used against me? She was asking for forgiveness. She was asking for a second chance. And my son Mark was looking at me with these big, hopeful, please fix it, eyes. But all I could think, as I looked at my peaceful, happy, safe Christmas, all I could think was, did I want to risk it? Did I want to risk all this peace for her? I just stared at that phone. Mark was looking at me, his eyes shining with this desperate hope. Mom, this is it, right? This is the miracle. She's apologizing. Just call her. Please, call her right now. And a year ago, I would have burst into tears of relief. I would have fumbled for the phone. I would have called her crying and said, "Oh, Rita, of course, come over, let's forget everything." I would have been so starved for a scrap of connection, so desperate to have my son and my grandkids back, that I would have erased every boundary I'd ever tried to set. I would have said, it's okay, when it wasn't. But I'm not the woman I was a year ago. I've lived a whole year in the quiet. I've learned to like my own company. I've learned that peace, real peace, is better than that fake, stressful peacekeeping I used to do. Mark, sweetheart, I said, and my voice was very gentle. It's a hopeful email. But I am not calling her. What? Mom, why? He asked, and the hope in his face just crumpled. She's saying she's sorry. I know, I said, and that's wonderful. But look at the day. It's Christmas Day. We are happy. Right now. We are peaceful. I am not. I am not turning my day upside down because she suddenly decided to send an email. Frank, who had been listening to all of this, put a hand on Mark's shoulder. Your mother's right, son. This isn't an emergency. This is something to be read and thought about, not reacted to. But, Dad. No, Mark, I said, and I was firm, but kind. I need to think. I need to know what's real and what's just holiday guilt. I looked down at the phone. I read the email again, but this time I read it like Patricia, not just like Mom. I saw the apology, but I also saw the excuses, all wrapped up in that apology. I was intimidated by you. You were so perfect. I couldn't compete. She was saying, I was cruel because I was insecure. It was an explanation, and I appreciated that. But it wasn't a blank check. It wasn't a get-out-of-jail-free card. It meant that Frank's warning, be careful, Pat, was exactly right. If I just caved, if I just said, come on over, what would happen? We'd be right back where we started, her feeling insecure and less than me having to walk on eggshells, worried that my perfect kitchen or my perfect pie would set her off and send her running, and Stephen with her. No, I couldn't go back to that. I wouldn't. I put my phone in my pocket. I'm going to finish cleaning up, I said, and I'm going to have a piece of that apple pie, and we are going to finish our lovely, peaceful Christmas. Mark looked disappointed, but he nodded. He could see I wasn't the same woman he'd begged to just fix it a year ago. That night, after everyone had gone home, Frank and I sat by the tree. The house was quiet. What are you going to do, Pat? He asked. I'm going to write her back, I said, but not tonight. Tonight, I'm just at peace. I'll do it in the morning. The next day, I woke up with a clear head. For the first time, I wasn't afraid. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even desperate. I knew what I had to do. I sat down at my laptop, not my phone. This wasn't a quick text. This was a formal agreement, a new contract. I thought about Stephen. I thought about my grandkids. That part still ached. That part of me wanted to write, yes, yes, come home. I miss you. But I couldn't, because that wasn't the whole truth. The whole truth was, I miss you, and you have to respect me. So I typed, Dear Rita, I wrote, thank you for your email, and thank you for your apology. It means a lot to me. It takes a strong person to say what you said, and I appreciate that you're working on yourself. I stopped. That was good. It was kind. It acknowledged her effort. Frank, and I would be happy to see you and Stephen. We have missed you both, and the children, terribly. That was the truth, too. The part that was aching. As I said last year, our door is always open. And now, the final part, the most important part, the part one wouldn't back down on. Our door is always open for mutual respect. Let's start there. I read it over. It was simple. It wasn't angry. It wasn't a no. But it wasn't a yes, all is forgiven either. It was an invitation. It was an invitation to meet me on my new ground, on this new, solid foundation of self-respect that I had spent all year building. I wasn't sacrificing my new boundaries just because she said sorry. I was inviting her to see them and to honor them. I called Frank over. He read the screen, put on his glasses, and read it again. He didn't say anything. He just smiled. He leaned over and kissed the top of my head. That's my girl, he whispered. I took a deep breath. My finger was on the mouse. I hit send. I let out a breath. I felt like I'd been holding for a full year. Whatever happened next, whether she wrote back with, okay, or whether she got angry and said I was being too hard, I truly knew that I would be okay, because I was finally standing on my own 2 feet. Speaking of family, don't forget our Advent Calendar 2025 Mom Jokes book. It's 24 days of family fun. The link is in the pinned comment. So I hit send, and I walked away from the laptop. I went and poured myself another cup of coffee. I sat down with Frank, and we just talked. We talked about the garden and what we wanted to plant in the spring. The old me, the me from a year ago, would have sat in front of that computer for an hour, for hours, just waiting for a reply. I would have been sick with anxiety. My whole day, my whole piece would have been balanced on, what will she say next? But not this time. My piece wasn't up for negotiation anymore. It wasn't something she or Stephen or anyone else could give me or take away. It was mine. I had spent 70 years learning how to build it. That's the real story, isn't it? It's not about a rude daughter-in-law or a passive son. It's about me. It's about a 70-year-old woman who finally learned how to stop being the peacekeeper. It took me 70 years to learn that you can't force people to respect you. You just can't. You can't make them see your value. You can't beg them or cry or even serve them the perfect Christmas dinner and make them treat you right. All you can do, the only thing in this whole world you can actually control, is to teach them how you expect to be treated. And you do that by what you're willing to walk away from. You do that by what you're willing to say no to. For so many years, I thought my job was to hold the family together. I thought I was the glue. I thought that if I just smiled enough and baked enough and lied enough, if I just swallowed my own feelings enough, I could keep this perfect, happy family picture on the wall. But it was just a picture. It wasn't real. And I was the one breaking myself into little pieces to hold up a fake piece. I was the one paying the price for everyone else's comfort. And I have a feeling there are a lot of you out there who know exactly what that feels like. You're the one who always hosts. You're the one who calls your siblings to make sure they're speaking. You're the one who says it's okay when your feelings are deeply, deeply hurt just to avoid a fight. And it's just so exhausting. So now I have to ask you, after you've heard my whole story, what would you have done? I mean that. I really want to know. Would you have just let it go for another year? Would you have bought those emergency gifts just to keep the peace, just to make sure the grandkids had a nice day? Or would you have done what I did? And let's talk about that dinner. The breaking point. That's the part that I still turn over in my mind. Was I right to finally say something? Or was I wrong to do it at the Christmas dinner table? In front of the grandkids? Half of me says, Patricia, you had to. You had to do it where she couldn't run or hide. But the other half of me, the grandma half, still sees my little grandson's face. That look of confusion and fear. I've made my peace with it. But what about you? Is there a right time to finally stand up for yourself? Or did I just ruin Christmas? And how do you handle a Rita in your own family? Because I know she's not just in mine. What do you do with the person who just won't or can't respect the rest of the family? Do you cut them off? Do you try to understand them? Do you just give in? Please let me know in the comments below. I'm going to be reading them. And if you've ever felt like you're the only one trying, the only one holding it all together, if you've ever been the peacekeeper, go ahead and hit that like button and maybe subscribe to this channel, because it's here that we tell these stories, the real ones, the ones that maybe make us feel a little less alone. Lastly, don't forget our Advent Calendar 2025 Mom Jokes book. It's 24 days of family fun. The link is in the pinned comment. Thank you for listening.